Hey guys, Tech Rally here, and today we're going to be doing another front-end interview question on front-end eval. If you didn't watch my past videos before, we were tackling a few problems on this website, specifically the multi-step form and the modal. Definitely check those out if you haven't, but today we're going to be solving the mortgage calculator. If you don't know what front-end eval is, it's a platform with free exercises to practice for modern front-end development interviews. So if you are preparing for those front-end developer interviews, I highly recommend you to check this out. Let's scroll down to the mortgage calculator and read the prompt. The prompt says, create a calculator that accepts 3 inputs and calculate your monthly mortgage payment. Number 1, the principal loan amount, the interest rate, annual, number of years on your mortgage, and the standard math equation for calculating your monthly mortgage payment is this formula, where P is the principal loan amount, R is the monthly interest rate, and N is the total number of payments on your mortgage. Note the bold differences between the equation, variables, and the inputs. The inputs are set up that way as a matter of user experience. Borrowers tend to be presented numbers like this by their bank. Your job when working on this feature is to convert the user inputs into numbers that will be used in the calculations. Users will make 12 payments on their mortgage per year of their mortgage, and the monthly interest rate is the annual interest rate divided by 12. So if you see this example, we have 500,000 as our principal loan, interest rate is 3, length of loan is 30, and then you calculate it out and it's going to come out to 2108. So we need to basically create a form like this. And in this scenario, I'm not going to use React, but instead use vanilla JavaScript because this is a relatively simple form. The only hard part is just really calculating this output here. So let's just copy this and then paste it onto our index.js as our formula. And let's just see if we can solve this problem. So before jumping into just trying to figure out if this formula works or not, how about we create the layout of the form and then kind of just start from there. So in our index.html, we don't really have much to work with. Let me just zoom in one more just to make life a little bit easier for y'all. Cool. And I'm just going to move this a little bit to the right. Awesome. So let's just get this started. The first thing that we're going to notice based on the form is that we need to have a label and an input field, a label and an input field, and a label and an input field. So let's just do that right now. So here, let's just create a form. Cool. And inside of this form, let's create a label. And here we're going to say principal loan. And we're going to say HTML. Actually, no, for, and let's just call it loan. And here, let's just put an input field. And I will do an ID of loan. Let me just move this mouse out of the way. And then what else are we gonna do? We're gonna make it required. And usually I would put like type number or text or all of this stuff. But in this case, there's another characteristics of an input field where you could do like input mode and pattern. And I'm not going to talk about that right away, but I'll just do input mode equals numeric. So it's going to be a numeric field. And let's see what else we can do. We can also do another label. For equals, what's the next one? Percentage rate. So let's just call it rate. And here we'll do another label. And the label is interest rate. So here, let's just go interest rate. And we'll do another input field. ID equals rate. And required. And input mode equals decimal because interest can be in decimal format. The next thing I'm going to do is create another label. And for, what's the next one? Length of the loan. So maybe we'll call it loan length. And here we'll also do length of the loan. I believe it's undercase. Cool. And here we'll do another input field with the ID of loan length. Closing bracket, and then we'll do input mode equals numeric. Awesome. And right now it's not very clean. So how do we kind of break this down into like a more reasonable looking form like this? How about we just create a label of block. Oops, display block, I apologize. And maybe do the input field of display block as well. But there might be something that's going wrong where it's not working properly. Let's see. Can we refresh this page? Page is refreshed. What is going on that is causing this breakage? Let's see. Let's comment this out. And then when we add this one in, oops. Interesting. Label display block, input display block. What is going on here? Let's inspect the element. It looks like my styles aren't being transferred in here, which is kind of odd. Style.css. Where's my styles.css? Looks like I don't have a styles.css here. Index.js. Yeah, that makes sense. Import style.css. And now find module styles.css. Sorry about that. It looks like I might have deleted this import./style.css in the JavaScript. Cool. So let's keep it going. From here, let's just, I don't really like the spacing here. Maybe I'll just wrap this in a div with the class of row. And I'll just make this twice here. And also here. And in here, I'll just take this, paste it in here. Take this, paste it in here. And take this. Oops, take this and paste it in here. And what else do we need to do? We also need to make the row margin bottom, maybe like 5 pixels to make it life a little bit easier on that end. Awesome. And what else do we need to do? We need to add a percentage and a years. So let's add a percentage and a years. And right now it doesn't look very good, right? Because the percentage and years are kind of not ideal. So I think what we need to do is take out this input here. Sweet. What I did was I just removed the display block here because it was actually pushing everything down, which is not what I wanted to do. So stylistically, this looks good. The next thing we want to do is probably add that button, right, for the mortgage calculator, calculate. So let's add that into here. And let's do type equals submit. And here we'll say calculate folios. And what else do we need to do? I think that's good for now. Let's just try to figure out how to calculate the formula, and then at the same time, let's consider some edge cases. So let's make it work, then let's make it right, and then let's make it fast. So HTML-wise, I think we're in a pretty good situation right now, and CSS-wise, we're at a decent spot. So let's get into the JavaScript. So the first thing we want to do is we're probably going to need to make some changes here, right? And from here, let's figure out what we want to do. Let's see. So if you notice in my previous videos, I like with specifically on the class modal, I kind of structured it in a pretty nice and clean format that way. But since this form is so simple, I think we could just kind of do everything on the global. I think we could just do everything globally, essentially. So let's just do const form element equals document.query selector of the form. I believe I named it ID of form. Nope, I didn't give it an ID of form. And here, let's do form element dot add event listener of the submit here, which is the event. And the first thing we're going to do is just say event.prevent default. And let's see console.log e.target.elements. So that should give us all of the elements of our values. So if I say 500,000, 1, 2, 3, 3%, I believe, and then 30, and then we calculate it. Let's look at our console. We should be able to see these values here. And you'll notice that the button is also included here. So that's not what we want. So what we can do is we can do it of one of many different ways, essentially. But there's a way you could kind of just turn these e.target elements into an array by just saying const elements equals e.target elements. And what I should do is I'm just gonna pop it. So I'm gonna say elements.pop. And if I do console.log elements and save that, let's do it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 30. Now I have these HTML input elements, which is exactly what I want. And for example, if I do elements of 0.value, sorry about that. Let me just see if I could just submit this. Probably not, because I made the fields required, which makes sense. And then one more. And console. Oops. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3% and 30 years. Calculate. Cool. So I could get the value this way. But I don't want to just do elements of 0, elements of 1, elements of 2. That's a little kind of like a hacky way to do it. I mean, I guess I could because there's not as many fields here, but what if the field had like way too many way too many input fields, right? So I think what we can do here, just to make life a little bit easier, and I'll leave this up to you on how you want to kind of break it down, but you could kind of more or less do this. Just say const principal equals elements of 0.value, and then you say const rate equals elements of 1.value, and const, what's the last one? Interest, I believe. Nope, that's the length. Loan length equals elements of 2.value. And let's just take advantage of the fact that there's only 3 fields. So if I do console.log, principal, rate, and loan length, let's see what comes out. 3, 30, calculate. Sweet. So I get all of these values like this, which is perfect. And now all we need to do is calculate this with the actual formula that we want to use, which is up here. But also, let's go back to the prompt. It says that note the bolded differences between the equation variables and the inputs. The inputs are set up that way as a matter of user experience. And let's just go down to it here. Users will make 12 payments on their mortgage per year of their mortgage, and the monthly interest rate is the annual interest rate divided by 12. So whatever the user decides to put right here in the interest rate should be divided by 12. And then the users making 12 payments of their mortgage per year should be 30 years times 12 because 12 months in a year, right? And another thing that you also want to consider is that this is in a percentage. So it's actually going to be whatever that interest rate times, I believe, 0.01. So for example, if it's 3%, it has to be 0.03 times or divided by 12. So in this case, let's calculate maybe like real interest. Let's just call it interest rate and months equals rate times 0.01 divided by 12. And the loan length is actually it should be loan length in months is loan length times by 12. But right now, if you remember correctly, these two values are actually strings. So in case of the rate, we want to call the parse float, which will make this rate into a decimal number. And the loan length is actually going to just be a regular number. So we could do parse int of the loan length times by 12. Cool. And what's it giving us here? We need to give it a radix number, and we just give it 10. Cool. And then the principal, all we need to do here is we could just say parse int of the principal here. Sweet. And just give it a radix of 10. And now we just need to kind of more or less plug it into this formula here. So let's say const return value. Actually, yeah, let's just call it return value or return, what's the actual thing we're returning? Mortgage payment, right? So const mortgage payment equals the principal times, ooh, this is going to be long. I should have made these a little bit shorter, just to make it a little bit easier for you guys to kind of understand this formula. I'm just going to say const top equals something and const bottom equals something here. So let's just do the top first. The interest rate in months times 1 plus the interest rate in months. And we could do math.pow, which is the equivalent of the squared here. And n is what? N is the loan length in months. Cool. Hopefully that makes sense. And then the const bottom is going to be something different, right? So that is going to be 1 plus the interest rate in months. And we got to do a math.pow. And I highly encourage you to look this up if the math.pow doesn't make sense. But essentially, it's basically doing a power of whatever this n value is, which is the loan length in months. And then minus 1. Cool. And now all we need to do is principal over top over bottom. And let's calculate if this is correct. So console.log mortgage payment. And let's just get rid of this. And let's get rid of this console. Let's do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 330. Calculate 2108.02, which is 2108.02. Perfect. Now all we need to do is somehow display some text on the bottom. So let's just create a like a p tag here with the class of info text, and we'll give it a hidden. Actually, it doesn't really matter. We'll just give it info text. And here we'll say, after you get the mortgage payment, let's just do const info text element equals document dot query selector of info text. And here we'll say info text element dot text content equals, and we'll use some ES6 string interpolation, your monthly mortgage payments will be something like that, I believe. And here we just need to put mortgage payments. And let's just get rid of this. Save it. And let's see what happens. Let's clear this out. We'll do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3%. And last but not least, we'll do 30. Calculate, and it says your monthly mortgage payment will be this. And rather than having it that way, we wanted to actually match what the design looks like here, which is 2108. How do we compensate for that? All we need to do is kind of floor it down, right? So I think what we can do is just do a parse int and then 10. Let's see if that works. So if I do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, calculate. Whoops, it looks like there's a glitch. Calculate. Awesome, your monthly mortgage payment will be 2108. So it works right now, which is great for us. But there is a little bit of a caveat here, because right now the interest rate isn't really limited by anything, and we could just put in like decimals and all of that stuff. So what we did here in the form itself, you can see that we kind of changed it up by using this input mode, and rather than like the typical like type equals text, type equals all of those things. And we did that intentionally. And the reason why we did that is because of accessibility. And on top of that, it really just gives the browser an idea of what the number should be expected. But to truly really give some type of validation on these like fields, we need to give it a pattern property. And in this case, we're going to give it some regex. And I highly recommend you to look this up. But basically, by applying this regex here, we're saying that the principal loan has to be like, it can't have any decimal numbers. But if you want to apply decimal numbers and enforce it, you can do another regex here. So you could do 0 to 9 x dot question 0 to 9. Yeah, so I highly recommend you to look up this regex. It's not super intuitive, I do realize that, but if you can just kind of like memorize these kinds of patterns, then it's going to really help you in the long run. And last but not least, where is the last one here? The number of years should just be the same pattern as the first one. So it should just be 0 to 9 and then star. Perfect. Now when I try to do like 12.1 and like 3.2 and 5 years, it's going to say, please match the requested format. So I need to do by 120. Sorry, it glitches sometimes. 12. But if I try to do like 0.52, it's going to say match the requested format. And then when we calculate, again, it'll come out properly. Everything is working properly. And if you're able to finish this in like record time, then congratulations. This is the mortgage calculator that we wanted to do. If you didn't know, accessibility is very, very important, especially on the front end. So if you're able to kind of add those flavors in, if you're able to add those flavors in during your interview process, it's going to just help you so much compared to the other candidates, because truth be told, it is illegal to not have your front end application be accessible. But definitely if you're able to highlight your awareness of accessibility, will go really, really far in the long run. Just to give you an idea of what the field set is, the field set HTML element is used to group several controls as well as labels within a web form. As the example above shows, the field set element provides a grouping for part of an HTML form with a nested legend. As the example above shows, the field set element provides a grouping for part of the HTML form with a nested legend element providing a caption for the field set. It takes a few attributes, the most notable of which are forms, which contain an ID of the form of the same page, allowing you to make the field set part of that form, even if it's not nested inside it, and disabled, which allows you to disable the field set and all of its content in one go. Essentially, this field set is going to provide you more accessibility, and like I said again, it's really going to help you shine during these interview processes. So here, let's go back to our code, and inside of our code, let's just create a field set. And in our field set, let's create a legend. And in our legend, we'll call it mortgage calculator. Cool. And then let's just take all of the stuff in our form here and do here and then paste and then save. Awesome. So now we have our form with our field set and our legend. And now all we need to do is just give it a little bit of style so it's more centered and just more compact. So all we need to do is go back into the style.css and let's just have some fun styling it. The first thing I want to do is let's look at our index. Do we have an app? Yes, we do. So let's style our app first. And we'll do display flex, coolios, and then justify content center. Awesome. And cool. So now we have our little calculator app here. Let's see if there's any other changes that we need to make. I feel like the extra helper text might be off, but let's confirm. Calculate. Yep, exactly, right? Because we need to move. Oh, this is kind of interesting. I wonder why that's happening. Let's confirm that later. And we'll say flex direction column and align items center folios. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 30, calculate. All right, so what is going on here? Let's see. Let's go back to our index.js and let's see what our top and bottom values are. Or actually, let's just see what the principal rate and loan length is. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3% and 30 years. Principal is not getting recognized. That is interesting. What is going on here? So what did we change here that would cause that to happen? Let's see. ID is loan, for, cool, exactly what we want. Parse int of the value. Let's see. Console.log e.target.elements. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 30. I wonder why that's happening. Let's see. Let's take the field set off for 1 second. And let's also remove the legend and just see what happens. 2, 1, 2, 3, 330, and calculate. So it looks like having a field set and legend can be a little bit tricky if not formatted correctly. Maybe having those div rows is actually hurting me right now. So let's just confirm that by removing them and see if we can style them better. So let's just get this is gone, 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 and this is gone. Cool. And yes, I know the format is not ideal, but I just want to confirm that it works. Awesome. So even having that included is messing up my numerics for some reason. Why is that? Very, very interesting. Maybe. I am missing a name. So let's here add a name of loan. And here add a name of rate. And here add a name of loan length. Cool. And let's see if that works. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 330. Calculate. Nope, that does not work either. And oh, interesting. You know what it is now that I look at it? It's now that we've added the field sets, it actually messed up my ordering of my numbers, as you can see. Ah, that is why. All right, so if we add the field sets, which is not a problem, let's do this. So even in the interview process, I would highly suggest you to be okay when things don't work out your way, right? That's all part of the game. So what we want to do here is going to be a little bit different. So let's see, let's refresh just so it works. And then 3 and 30 and calculate. So as you can see, all of the stuff is kind of jumbled out everywhere, right? So rather than doing e.target.elements and doing it this way, we need to just figure out like how do we find the correct input fields here, right? And there are a few ways to do this, but let me think about it for a second. Loan length, rate, and then there's a button. Why is there 2 loan lengths here? Loan, rate, loan length, type equals submit. Interesting. Let's see what the length is here. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 30. Calculate. 5. So why is that? Let's see. It's because there is a field set, and we also want to get rid of the button, I assume, and then the rate and loan pops up again, which is interesting. Huh. Let's see. This is adding a layer of complexity that I did not anticipate. So let's see. Oh, I also did an elements.pop. I just want to see actually. That actually won't make a difference here in this case. How do we want to break this out that it's a little bit easier to find? How do we get all the input fields? So let's just see e.elements of 1. Is there something there that can help me identify it as an input field? Sorry about that glitch. Cool. So maybe I could say, how do I check if it's a type of input field? So I'm going to Google this really quick. Check if type is input. JavaScript. Check the type property. That could work, but I don't really like that. Maybe there's a way where we can get the element.id. And here, let's just do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3%, 30, and loan. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of make it work, and let's see if we have time to make it right. But for now, what I would consider doing if I was stuck in a pickle like this is I have the IDs ready to go, right? So ID of loan, ID of rate, and ID of loan length. So I'm just gonna more or less copy just this like const loan, whoops, const inputs equal loan rate and loan length. So rate and loan length. Folios. Sweet. And then I would, let's see. I would just have, I guess, an array of elements be empty. And then what I would do is I would take these e.target.elements and then for each element, if inputs, dot includes element.id, then let's just shove the elements dot push the element. And I don't think this is like the most ideal way to do this, but I'm kind of stuck in a pickle at the moment and you're just seeing it live. And here I will just remove this again. And let's just see if this works. I believe it should work. Let's see. Let's console.log the elements. And let's check it out. So I'll remove this, refresh it. Calculate. Awesome. So it looks like adding a field set and all of that stuff, which was supposed to help with accessibility, kind of messed up my structure on this end. I believe there is probably a better way to kind of destructure out those specific properties based on like the loan, the rate, and the loan length. But since you caught me on the fly kind of thinking about this is kind of how I would do. And I would kind of mention in the interview, ideally, I would like to find a better way to just target the whole array of elements and just pick specific keys out of there. So I assume that there's some good way to like destructure out like the loan, and then some value, and then like some rate, and then some value, and then all of that stuff. But for now, this works, and now we get the flexibility of accessibility as well as the actual mortgage calculator working properly. So we got the best of both. Now, hopefully you can come up with a better flavor than this, but essentially this is kind of how I would solve the problem, especially on a first pass. And maybe on the second pass, we can kind of improve these variable names. Maybe I would even suggest trying to break this down into more of a like easier chunk to manage. But under a certain time constraint, I think this is a pretty good way to kind of close it out. And also, again, mention the accessibility and why it's important. Hopefully that all made sense. And I highly recommend you to try this on your own and see how far you can get along. Always remember that this R and N is based on the monthly value, not necessarily the yearly value. So you got to do the divide by 12 or times by 12. Now that we're finished with that, definitely check out Frontend Eval if you're looking to do more front-end interview questions. There's a lot of questions out there and we're adding more and more as we go. So if you're feeling a little ambitious, I highly recommend you to check out Frontend Eval. And I'll see you next week for another question. Talk to you later. Bye.